So in this atomic structure, what all we have done, let's see now once. Advantage of this one note is the data will be here. So we started with John Dalton's atomic theory of matter, who coined the word for the first, and then it was J.J. Thomson who discovered the electron, negative particle, Goldstein, particle, proton. You mute yourself so that the noise in the background will not be there. Fine. Then after Goldstein's positive particle, James Chadwick in the bombardment experiment, he discovered neutron, a neutral particle. We need to know about the basic properties of fundamental particles such as electron, proton, neutron, the mass and the charge. You need to remember these values of charge. Charge of electron and proton is equal in magnitude but opposite in sign, and the mass of electron is negligible, is of the order of 10 raised to minus 31, whereas proton and neutron is almost comparable, 10 raised to minus 27 kg. Okay. After that, plum-pudding model of Thomson, which is basic fundamental model, he also told that the atom is like a plum cake and or watermelon cake. The positive charge is uniformly spread across, and the negative particles, electrons, will be there here and there, with analogy to plum cake having fruits in between, or a watermelon having seeds in between. Something basic model. After that, Rutherford has done alpha ray scattering experiment, by using which he could give a significant one, which could make a difference then. So of the atomic model, based on alpha ray scattering experiment, he made 3 observations. Most of alpha particle went straight, very few particles deflected by large angles, 1 in 20,000 traced the path back. Okay, so based on that, he told that, so there is atom which is having lot of empty spaces, and there is a centrally located positively charged massive portion at the center called nucleus. Electrons are revolving around different paths called orbits around the nucleus. This is how exactly it gave. Now, if we imagine the atom, it is the Rutherford model which comes into our mind. But Rutherford could give some kind of basic structure, which was a significant one, but the theory couldn't account for stability of the atom according to principles of Maxwell's theory of electromagnetic radiation. So electron being a charged particle, when it moves, it has to radiate energy and finally lose energy and fall into the nucleus. How could the electron can be stable in an atom was not explained by Rutherford, and also some of the other things like he couldn't account for spectrum of the atom. Okay. Then we have taken after Rutherford, it is Bohr's theory which we need to understand. Before we could understand Bohr's theory and its applications, we will study all the basics of atom. So atomic number, number of protons in an atom, which is nothing but number of electrons. It has to be equal to, for example, for the reason that it has to be neutral. So in an atom, you can say number of protons as atomic number or number of electrons also, but not in an ion. So it's better to define atomic number only in terms of protons. So mass number is nothing but number of protons and neutrons present inside the nucleus. Particles inside the nucleus are called nucleons. A symbol of an element is represented as ZXA. Correct? So Z atomic number, A is mass number, X is the symbol. For example, 6C12, 92 uranium 32. How do you calculate number of neutrons? As A minus Z. Okay. So then ions are the charged particles or species which will be formed by gaining electron or losing electron from an atom. If you add an electron to an atom, it becomes negative. You remove an electron, it becomes positive. Okay. So then isotopes are the species of same element having same atomic number, different mass number. Isobars are atoms of different elements having same mass number, different atomic number, exactly reverse. So argon, potassium, calcium. Okay. Isotones are the atoms of different element with same number of neutrons. That means A minus Z will be same. Then we started speaking about dual nature of light in the last class. So light exhibits dual nature, that is one wave nature and particle nature. Okay. The characteristic, if light is a wave will move like a crest and trough. So there are certain characteristics, properties of wave motion of light. So when I say light is a wave, it has to have certain basic fundamental properties. For example, wavelength. Wavelength is distance between adjacent crests or troughs. It is measured in submultiples of meters like nanometer, Armstrong, or kilometer like that. Frequency is the number of waves which cross a given point in 1 second. Cycles per second or hertz is the unit of frequency. Amplitude is the maximum displacement of a crest or a trough above the mean position. Then velocity, a wave is always progressive in nature. So therefore, distance traveled by the wave in 1 second is what is velocity. Similarly, number of waves present per unit length is called wave number, nu bar. Nu bar is 1 by lambda. After that, Maxwell has told that any energy which is emitted or absorbed as rays is called radiant energy. Any energy which is emitted as rays are radiant energies. Heat is radiant energy, light is radiant energy. So many radiant energies are there. So these radiant energy will be emitted or absorbed by any object in terms of a radiation with magnetic field and electric field. So radiant energy has two components in it, an electric field component and magnetic field component, oscillating perpendicular to each other and also oscillating perpendicular to the direction of propagation of the ray. That's why all radiations are called electromagnetic radiations. All electromagnetic radiations will have velocity in air or vacuum that is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Right? This is Maxwell's theory of electromagnetic radiation. Then Max Planck told that no, radiant energy will be emitted or absorbed in terms of small discrete packets of energy. Each packet is called quantum or plural quanta. And only integer multiple of quantum or photon will be emitted. Quantum is also called photon in case of light, right? And energy present in each quantum is given by E is equal to h nu. Nu is nothing but C by lambda. You can always say, right? Okay, because C is the product of lambda and nu. So as a result, nu is equal to C by lambda. You can all write that. Then we have spectrum. Spectrum is the pattern of radiation in which different radiations are arranged in a either decreasing or increasing order of wavelength. How do we get spectrum? By the process of dispersion. Okay. Next, we have visible spectrum, VIBGYOR, from violet to red. Wavelength increases. Frequency therefore decreases because wavelength frequency are inversely proportional. Frequency is indicating energy. When frequency decreases, energy also decreases. So in visible spectrum from VIBGYOR, from violet to red, red is having least energy, violet has more energy. Like that, in the nature, there are different radiations. A part of it we can see by naked eye. Many radiations in the nature can't be seen by naked eye. So if you arrange all the radiations existing in the nature in the increasing order of their wavelengths, then you get a huge spectrum that is called electromagnetic spectrum. In order to remember this electromagnetic spectrum, I gave you this word, a shortcut to remember this, that is R MUX gamma C. You remember it as a name of some scientist. R MUX gamma C. R for radio waves, microwaves, M I infrared, V visible, U ultraviolet, X rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays. So from R to C, frequency increases, wavelength decreases. So energy frequency, if it increases, energy also increases. So cosmic radiations are more energetic in the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay. Then spectrum of two types basically. You have emission spectrum and absorption spectrum. You take a substance, you give energy, heat energy or electrical energy, anything. It absorbs energy and gets excited. After a while, when you stop giving energy, it starts re-emitting energy. The energy re-emitted when passed through prism, dispersion takes place and the spectrum is obtained. And the spectrum obtained is because of emission of energy. That spectrum is called emission spectrum. Now, you have taken the substance, supplied energy. It gets excited by absorbing some part of energy. Remaining part of energy not absorbed will be transmitted. So some part of energy is given, excited. Remaining part of energy will be transmitted. This transmitted light, when passed through prism, it will have kind of spectrum obtained where there will be dark lines in between the background, bright background. There will be bright background and dark lines in between. That dark lines is indicating the wavelength that is absorbed during excitation. We are passing the energy, a part of energy is absorbed, remaining part is transmitted. In the transmitted radiation, the absorbed energy will be absent. That's why there will be dark lines. So if you plot a, if you get the spectrum from absorption of light by passing transmitted light into the prism, then it is absorption spectrum. If you get the spectrum by the energy emitted by the substance, it is emission spectrum. So till here we have done in our last classes, right? Now what we do, we'll take a further. Actually, we are close to Bohr's theory. Before Bohr's theory, we need to discuss one more important concept, that is photoelectric effect. Okay, photoelectric effect. Okay, what is this photoelectric effect? Now, you take any metal, okay, and here, as you know, in metals there will be free electrons always. Okay, so there will be electrons. Okay, so electrons will be there in the metal. Okay, now atoms also will be there. Electrons are relatively free in the metals. Now you expose this metal M to some radiation. Now radiations, when you expose, radiations will be falling down. And when they fall down onto the metal, they may reflect back also. But for a radiation of a particular frequency, okay, a radiation of particular frequency is nu. Particular frequency, when you supply, that is nu naught, we say. For that frequency, the electron will be knocked out, will be ejected out. Now this is the radiation of a particular frequency. Not the radiations of all the frequencies will not remove the electron. A radiation of particular frequency, when incidents on the metal, electron will be removed. And the frequency required to remove that electron from the metal surface is called threshold frequency. What is threshold frequency? It is the frequency, minimum frequency of the radiation required to remove the electron from the metal surface. And the electron thus removed is called photoelectron. Photoelectrons. Okay. And now the energy corresponding to that frequency. I told you frequency indicates energy. Energy of that radiation corresponding to that particular threshold frequency is called E naught. You can call it as threshold energy of the radiation. Energy. Actually, the energy of the incident photon will be given by E naught is equal to H nu naught. H is Planck's constant, right? Okay. So no problem. So this phenomena, what is happening here in this phenomena? A metal is exposed to radiation. A radiation of suitable frequency removes the electron. This is called photoelectric effect. Okay. So therefore, how do we give statement for this? It's the phenomenon of ejection of electron from a metal by the incident of a light of suitable frequency. The phenomenon of ejection of electron from a metal surface by the incident of a light of suitable frequency. That is, now different metals will have different frequency required to remove the electron. Okay, like sodium will have some threshold frequency which is different from iron, which is different from gold, different from magnesium, something like that. Okay, every metal will have its own threshold frequency or threshold energy. Is it okay? And that minimum energy, let's say there is some metal here used. Okay, 1 second. There is a metal surface. Okay, I am going to incident the radiation now. Now, threshold frequency, the frequency of this radiation nu is less than threshold frequency. I'm incidenting the radiation. It has frequency which is less than threshold frequency. Do you think the electron will be ejected from the metal surface now? Yes or no? Now I am incidenting the metal with a radiation of frequency less than threshold frequency. Electrons will be ejected or no? Electrons?
Sir, no, sir.
No. Electrons will not be ejected. Okay. Now I am going to increase the frequency. I am using a different radiation. Now the incident frequency is equal to threshold frequency. Electron will be ejected or not?
Yes, sir, it will be.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm going to use a radiation of frequency which is greater than threshold frequency. Okay. Let's say threshold frequency corresponds to something like 10 joules. Simply some number.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm using a frequency 8 joule. So electron will not be ejected. I'm using 10 joule. Then electron will be ejected. If I use something like 15 joules, what would happen is the question. Any idea?
More electrons will be ejected.
More electrons will not be ejected for the reason that if I have to remove one more electron, another 10 joules is required. But I am supplying only 15 joules. Correct? So one electron will be ejected. What about the remaining 5 joules of energy? What would happen? That
Sir, it will.
energy will be imparted to the electron removed so that it moves with a particular kinetic energy. This electron will move with the kinetic energy given by half mv square. The equation to calculate kinetic energy, right? M is mass of electron, V is velocity of electron. So, if at all, if you are going to incident a radiation of frequency greater than the threshold frequency, then electron ejected, the photoelectron ejected will move with a certain amount of kinetic energy. More the frequency you incident, then more will be the kinetic energy of the electron removed. That's the meaning. Okay. Then somebody told me number of electrons removed will be increasing. No. Number of electrons removed depends only on the intensity. Okay. So I can say this much. The frequency of the incident radiation. Okay. If I incident a radiation of 15 joules, 10 joules are required for removing electron. Correct? 10 joules are required for, are used for removing electron. That 10 joules. Remaining 5 joules will be imported as a kinetic energy. So what is this threshold energy? Nu naught. What is this 5 joules? It will be appearing as kinetic energy. So therefore, I can always write an equation for the incident energy like this. The energy of the incident radiation out of that incident energy, a part of energy will be used for removing electron. The energy required to remove electron is what? Threshold energy E naught. And remaining part of energy will be imparted to the electron as kinetic energy. So that electron moves with that kinetic energy. E is given by h nu, Planck's quantum theory. Correct? No? H nu. E naught is nothing but h nu naught. What is kinetic energy? Half mv square. Okay. So this is the equation for photoelectric effect. There will be problems based on this. Okay. Now, what are the conclusions you can derive based on this? You can always say the kinetic energy of the emitted electron will be directly proportional to frequency of the incident radiation that is greater than threshold frequency. Minimum, there should be threshold frequency. If you incident a radiation of frequency greater than threshold frequency, then kinetic energy increases. Is that okay? Right. And number of electrons ejected. Number of electrons ejected is directly proportional to intensity of the radiation. of the radiation that falls onto the metal surface. Of course, that radiation should have to have threshold energy or threshold frequency. Beyond that, if it has intensity, more number of electrons will be ejected. Okay, so this E naught is also called work function. You know this words, work function. Some books they represent this work function as a symbol called phi. Okay, phi or phy, phi, how you say. So E naught is equal to work function phi, they say, or sometimes they represent it as W also. Just know these terminologies. That's all. This is a brief introduction for the reason that we need to understand Bohr's theory and its application. We are understanding all the required theories. Okay. Graphically, you can represent photoelectric effect like this. Okay, so this is y-axis, this is x-axis. Is that okay? So this is the energy of the incident radiation. Okay. Now this is the kinetic energy of the electron emitted. Now, for all the energies starting from 0, electron will not be emitted. For a particular energy, which is called threshold energy, electron starts emitting. Let's say this point represents E naught. What is E naught? Threshold energy. After that, if the energy of the incident radiation increases beyond E naught, what would happen? Kinetic energy of the emitted electron increases. So a graph will be obtained like this. What does this graph indicate? Up to this blue point, there is no emission of electron at all. If once that blue point, which is nothing but E naught, crosses, then electrons start emitting. Is that okay? More the energy that you supply beyond E naught, more will be kinetic energy. That's why the graph goes upward. So this is how we represent graphically. So fine, this is about photoelectric effect. One point extra, if I need to add to this, the Einstein uses this photoelectric effect concept to explain particle nature of light. The light exhibits dual nature, wave nature, particle nature. Wave nature can be experimentally understood by using concepts such as reflection, refraction and all. So what is a reflection? If a light falls onto the mirror, it will be reflected back. Reflection would be possible if something behaves like a wave. If light is reflected back into the same medium, light must be wave, because wave moves like a crest and trough, hits the target and bounce back. Whereas if it is a particle, then a particle will hit the target and stop there. It will not bounce back. That is particle nature. Now, photoelectric effect is a evidence for particle nature of light. Why? Electron is a particle, it has some mass. Electron being particle, if it has to be ejected out of the metal, then another particle also should hit the electron. So if light is removing the electron from the metal surface, which is a particle, light also should behave like a particle. One particle can hit another particle to make it move. If light were to be wave, it will bounce back, that's all. It will not remove electron. Since light also behaves like a particle, it can hit the electron, which is a particle, and remove that one. That's why photoelectric effect therefore becomes evidence for the particle nature of light. Okay. So fine. With this, we'll proceed. We'll take up Bohr's theory now. Okay. So that's about photoelectric effect. Also. Next, Bohr's theory. Or Bohr's atomic model. What is the concept of Bohr's theory? See, it has been proposed by Niels Bohr, a scientist by name Niels Bohr. Okay, it's by Niels Bohr. So as per this, the theory postulates are like, we'll take one. The theory says that atom consists of, I'll only write brief of the entire postulate. Okay. So atom consists of, okay, stationary states. Atom consists of stationary states around nucleus. Around the nucleus. These stationary states possess some energy. They possess energy. Hence, these stationary states are also called energy levels. The same concept can be equated to the concept given by Rutherford. He said shells or orbits. No, you can almost equate to this concept. Okay, so atom consists of stationary states around the nucleus. They possess some energy, and hence they are called energy levels. They are nothing but shells or orbits of the concept of Rutherford. Okay, energy levels. Now these are given by the letter N. Okay, N indicates energy levels. N value for any atom starts with 1, and the maximum value of N is not 7 or 10, it is infinity. Okay, an atom can have infinite number of energy levels. Okay, that's the meaning. So this is the first postulate. In the first postulate itself, the theory says the atom has energy levels. This concept was not given by any other theories. Okay, now, number 2. The theory says as long as electron revolves around nucleus.
Excuse me, sir. Could you go a little bit up? I want to take that down.
Okay. Yeah, please. Okay, Vikram.
Yes, sir. Done, sir.
That's fine. Super. As long as electron revolves around the nucleus in any energy level, see, I'm abbreviating all so that I can write little faster. As long as electron revolves around the nucleus in any energy level, it neither emits energy nor absorbs energy. This is important to account stability. Absorbs energy. That means, let's say there is nucleus here. This is the first energy level, second energy level, like that it goes on. As long as electron revolves around the nucleus in any energy level, it neither emits energy nor absorbs energy. This particular postulate overcomes the drawback of Rutherford model. Based on Rutherford model, any moving charged particle has to emit energy and fall into the nucleus. The Bohr's theory, actually Neil Bohr was the student of Rutherford. So he could improvise the concept and give the better version of it. Okay. So electron, since it revolves around the nucleus in a particular energy level, there it has some energy by itself. So it will simply rotate. As long as it rotates around the nucleus, revolves around the nucleus, it doesn't emit energy nor absorb energy. There is no question of electron falling into the nucleus. So the result of the second postulate is atom is stable. The conclusion can be derived like that. Atom is quite stable. Now the third postulate. The third postulate incorporates a condition for electron to be present in a particular energy level. We didn't understand. What is that exactly? Let's say in a classroom, you are all electrons, let's say in a classroom. all benches are energy levels. So when you enter into the classroom, it is your will and wish. You may sit in the first bench, second, middle bench, last bench, anyway. But electrons cannot be filled into various energy levels like that. If electrons have to be present in a particular energy level, they need to satisfy certain conditions. Okay, what are that condition? That is what the third postulate is all about. Okay, so an electron can occupy or be accommodated, can occupy that energy level for which its angular momentum electrons angular momentum the momentum is mass into velocity, right? Since electron is not moving linearly, it is revolving around the nucleus, it is angular momentum. So m mass into velocity into radius will give angular momentum. So angular momentum of electron should be equal to integer n multiple of a constant h by 2 pi. Okay, an electron can occupy that energy level for which its angular momentum mvr is equal to n into h by 2 pi. If electron satisfies this condition, an electron can be there in a particular energy level. We still didn't understand this, correct? We need to take some examples for this. Let us take some examples. If electron has to be present in first energy level, if electron has to be present in first energy level, then electron must have to possess angular momentum mvr equal to 1 into h by 2 pi. That's the meaning of it. So that is h by 2. So for any electron, if angular momentum mvr is equal to h by 2 pi, then it will be present in first energy level. Okay. And now you have to tell me, I'll ask you the questions. There is an electron for which its angular momentum mvr is equal to h by pi. Which energy level the electron is present?
The second energy level.
Why it is so? Because
Because n will be 2, 2 into cancel.
I keep n is equal to 2, 2 into h by 2 pi, it cancels, it becomes h by pi. So that is nothing but second energy level. Okay, let's say an electron has angular momentum mvr is equal to phi h by pi. Where is the electron?
So 10.
So n should be 10, right? So 10 by 2. So therefore, electron will be there in 10th energy level.
Sir, but energy level 10, is it?
How many energy levels are there here?
Yes, sir.
There can be infinite number of energy levels. Of
Okay,
course,
sir.
your question is actually like this. Sir, but no, all the known elements have electrons up to 7th energy level.
Yes, sir.
Element that exists in the nature has electrons present up to 7th. What about 10th? It can be excited, no? That's what hydrogen
Yes,
and all those things, right? So when you give energy, electron present in lower energy levels absorb and go to higher energy level. When it goes
Okay,
to
sir.
higher energy level, let's say 10th energy level, it has to satisfy that condition. MVR is equal to 10 into h by 2 pi. If not, then it will not be present in 10th energy level. That's what the theory says. Is it okay?
Okay, sir.
Can you explain?
Sir, many electrons can have the same angular momentum, no, sir?
No. I didn't get you. Once again.
Not only one electron, sir. Many electrons can have same angular momentum.
Of course. It's all about capacity of an energy level to accommodate the electron. Sometimes an energy level can have 18 electrons present, whereas in some energy levels, if it is small enough, then it accommodates only few electrons. If it is big energy level, it accommodates more electrons. For all those electrons, angular momentum should be same value. What you said is right. Somebody is asking me with one more example so that I'll see once again. See, the third postulate is all about imposing a condition on an electron to be present in a particular energy level. Electron simply cannot go randomly in any energy level and be present. If electron has to be present in an energy level, it has to satisfy its condition. What is that condition? When it revolves around the nucleus, it will have angular momentum value. That angular momentum should be equal to integer n into h by 2 pi. If electron satisfy that condition, it will be present in a particular energy level. Okay. If an electron is present in first energy level, then n should be 1. So angular momentum of electron in first energy level should be mvr is equal to h by 2 pi. Okay. If angular momentum is of some electron is h by pi, then what should be n value? N value should be 2, because 2 by 2 cancels, it becomes h by pi. So an electron to be present in second energy level, angular momentum should be equal to h by pi. Or if angular momentum of an electron is phi h by pi, where exactly electron will be present? Now, what should be n value here? See, 2 is not there here. Okay. If mvr is equal to, if n value is 10, 10 into h by 2 pi, right? Cancels and pi. So it becomes what? Phi h by pi. So for any electron, if angular momentum is phi h by pi, then n value is 10 there. The electron will be then accommodated in 10th energy level. Is that okay? So that's how exactly the postulate imposes a condition for an electron to be present in a particular energy. Right. The last one. Okay. The fourth postulate. Now, listen. See, this fourth postulate is particularly for explaining the spectrum of atom, which was again a drawback of Rutherford theory. What the theory says: electron transition between energy levels takes place only when it absorbs or emits. Only when it absorbs or emits energy. Okay. As long as electron revolves around the nucleus in a single energy level, it neither emits or nor absorbs. But you can take that atom and supply some energy. You can heat that. When you heat that element, the electron present in a particular energy level absorb that energy. When it absorbs energy, its angular momentum increases. If its angular momentum increases, it will go to that higher energy level where its angular momentum condition will balance that mvr is equal to n into h by 2 pi. So what I can say, let me draw this atom. This is the nucleus. First energy level, second, third. Let me draw one more. Fourth. So this is n value. N indicates energy level. N is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's say electron is there here in the first energy level. Okay. Now what I am going to do, I am going to supply energy. Before that, it was simply revolving around the nucleus without emitting or absorbing. Now I am going to supply some energy by heating the entire atom. If I heat the atom, the electrons in various shells will absorb energy. So like that, this electron absorbs some energy. When it absorbs energy, it gets promoted to higher energy level. It may go to 4, or it may go further to 10, it may go further to 20, whatever. It all depends on how much energy it has absorbed. If it has absorbed some energy, it will go to 4th energy level. Let's see. Is that okay?
Sir,
So,
is it because in that energy level it cannot be stable if it has more energy?
it would have its more angular momentum. If angular momentum is more, then the condition has to be satisfied with the n into h by 2 pi. If angular momentum is more, energy of the electron is more. So it will suit that energy level which has that particular energy, high energy. Okay. If you give energy, electron
Okay, sir.
angular momentum increases. That means its energy increases. So an electron with higher energy can be present in high energy levels only, not low energy. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So now electron will go to fourth energy. So that means when absorption of energy is there, electron gets excited to higher energy level. Likewise, any electron in higher energy level can be depromoted. Okay, it will come back. Whenever it comes back to lower energy level, it gives out energy. Energy will be emitted. So it is clear now. When an electron in an atom absorb energy, gets excited to higher energy levels. When electron from higher energy level comes to lower energy level, that's called de-excitation, then energy is emitted. Okay, so people have to tell me, there is an electron, it goes from fifth energy level to seventh energy, absorption or emission? An electron in an atom jumps from
Absorption.
energy level to seventh. Absorption of energy or emission of energy?
Absorption of
Absorption.
energy.
An electron go from 4 to 2. Absorption or emission?
Emission of energy.
Emission of. An electron goes from fourth energy level to first energy level. And now, in these two cases, emission or absorption here first? 4 to 5, 1.
Emission of.
Now, you people have to tell me. 4 to 2 emission, 4 to 1 is also emission. In which case, energy emitted is more?
Third
The
one.
second.
4 to 1 is more energy emitted. Correct? That's what is important. Okay. Let's say an electron jumps from second energy level. If electron jumps, means transits from second energy level to first energy level, then the difference in energy, E2 minus E1. E2 is energy of second energy level, E1 is the energy of first energy level. The difference in energy is given by delta for difference. We always write delta or D for difference, indicating difference. Okay, don't worry. So delta is difference in energy. That difference in energy will be emitted as a light photon, which is given by h nu. Is that okay? So whenever electron jumps from higher energy level to lower energy level, then difference in energy will be emitted as a light photon. Thus, a light will be emitted. If electron jumps from third energy level to first energy level, then a photon of higher frequency, means higher energy will be emitted. So these are 4 important postulates of Bohr's theory. In the first postulate simply says, atom has stationary states around nucleus. They possess some energy. Hence, they are called energy levels. They are similar to shells or orbits of Rutherford model. And it is energy levels are indicated by n. And n starts with 1, ends with infinity. And n should not be equal to what? N should not be equal to 0. Correct? There is no atom with 0 shells. Okay, something like that. Similar. As long as an electron revolves around the nucleus, it in any energy levels, it neither emits nor absorbs, simply it revolves. Now, for an electron to be present in a particular energy level, its angular momentum should be equal to integer multiple of h by 2 pi. Correct? Then only it will satisfy. So these are all the examples we have taken. Similarly, as long as an electron revolves in a particular energy level, it neither emits nor absorbs. But when you supply energy, it absorbs and gets excited. When it comes back, it emits. That means whenever electron transition takes place between any energy levels, either absorption or emission takes place. That is important. So these are.
Sir, you told energy level should not be 0, no, sir? For hydrogen, it's just 1 proton, sir. There is no electron present in there. What about that place?
Hydrogen has no electron. What do you mean by that? No neutron. Hydrogen has no neutron. It has electron. Any atom should have to have electron number equal to proton number. If hydrogen has 1 proton, That positive charge has to be balanced, right? So there is one electron. In hydrogen atom, there is one
Sir,
electron. One
not the atom, sir. In the ion.
in the ion only proton. That's why hydrogen ion is called just a proton. Hydrogen ion is called as a proton. It's the lightest particle possible. It is nothing but a proton. And then energy level hypothetically will not be there. That's all, because electrons are not present. Hydrogen ion will not have any energy levels. If at all, if you add electron, then it will accommodate into a energy level where MVR is equal to 1 into h by 2 pi.
Yes.
Fine. These are all the postulates of Bohr's theory. Now, we'll see something called hydrogen spectrum. There are merits, demerits, and everything. First, we'll take up hydrogen spectrum. Hydrogen spectrum is such a spectrum which will surprise you with various radiations in there. Okay. See, just now I was telling hydrogen atom has one electron. That's all. When you subject hydrogen for giving spectrum, it gives a complex spectrum. Only one electron in hydrogen atom. How come it can give complex spectrum? Let's see. First, the question is how to get hydrogen spectrum. Okay. So we'll see the heading. Spectrum of hydrogen or spectrum obtained from hydrogen is what is hydrogen spectrum. Now, how do you get an emission spectrum from any element? I told you no. How do you get emission spectrum from any element, any substance? For that? What you? How do you get a hydrogen spectrum? You have to excite that, right? You have to give energy to it. Now you take hydrogen spectrum, hydrogen gas in a discharge tube. This is called discharge tube. And now the word sounds very technical, discharge tube. What is discharge tube? It's just a glass tube with electrodes, anode and cathode. That's all the discharge. In this discharge tube, I'm going to take hydrogen gas. In order to get the spectrum easily, better take hydrogen gas at low pressure and apply high potential voltage. If you apply high voltage, which is high potential, under low pressure, then it is like supplying electrical energy to hydrogen atom. Okay, so you have taken hydrogen gas in a discharge tube at low pressure and you have applied high potential. Then the hydrogen absorbs energy. When it absorbs energy, after a while, it starts re-emitting the energy. That re-emitted energy needs to be passed into a slit like this. Okay, what is a slit? Okay. A slit is one which can render a beam of light narrow like this. A slit, simply a metal slit. This beam of light which is passed, we need to make it a narrow beam, pass through slit. Okay. Now that beam of light will be made to fall onto the prism. Okay, a prism has been taken care of. Right. Now the dispersion takes place. Split at first phase and split at second. Okay. Now the spectrum is obtained here after it is passed through the prism. Some of the radiations in that spectrum can be observed by naked eye, and some of the radiations can't be observed by naked. So the best way is pass that, or make that spectrum to fall onto a photographic plate. Okay, this is a photographic plate. That is the film, celluloid film, in olden cameras and all, there used to be real camera. That is the photo film. Okay, like that photographic plate will be there. This is photographic. Now, this photographic plate will have some impressions of the radiations. Impressions of the radiations. So it will be like this. So some groups of lines. So if you carefully observe that, there are 5 groups of spectral lines. Okay, on photographic plate, it's been obtained like 5 groups of lines. Now, if you enlarge this and see, it will appear like this. This is photographic plate enlarged, and it will have some groups of lines, like closely spaced groups of lines. One group, something like this. Some other group, like that. There are 5 groups of line. Something. Okay. Now, each group of line, what is this? Each group is having closely spaced sharp lines, correct? Hence, it is called series of lines. So each group of line has many lines placed very closely. That's why each group of spectral line is called series of line and named after the scientist who discovered them. Okay, actually, first spectral line group is discovered by a scientist by name Balmer. That's why it is called Balmer series. Balmer series. Now, Balmer series has visible lines. It can be seen by naked eye. Remaining series doesn't have visible lines. Okay. Next series was discovered by somebody called Lyman. Hence, it is called Lyman series. Okay. So, Lyman, Balmer. And next series was discovered by Paskin. So, it's called Paskin series. And the next one is discovered by a scientist by name Brackett. It's called Brackett series. The last one was discovered by Fund. Fund series. P is silent. You say Fund series. So Lyman series, Balmer series, Paskin series, Brackett, Fund series. 5 series of ones. Isn't it amazing? Why I'm telling you it's an amazing thing? See, hydrogen atom, as we know, it has 1 electron. There may be many energy levels, but electrons are not present in all the energy levels. So electron is just there in first energy level, 1 electron. This is hydrogen atom for you, right? So this hydrogen atom just having 1 electron is giving so much complex spectrum. The spectrum of hydrogen, emission spectrum, has 5 groups of lines. It's called series of lines. Lyman, Balmer, Paskin, Brackett, Fund. Now, this has to be explained by Bohr's theory. Any theory that is proposed should explain associated properties also. Otherwise, the theory is not validated. Bohr's theory is explaining structure of atom. If atom is like Bohr's, whatever Bohr has explained, then all the properties of the atoms must also be explained by Bohr's theory. If properties are not explained, then the theory is not valid. And thus, Bohr has to explain how come hydrogen atom, despite of having 1 electron, could give such a complex spectrum. Okay. So we'll take it.
Can you please go up, sir? I'll take it.
Tell me,
I'm taking it.
Surya,
Yes, sir.
tell me what?
Sir, can you please move up, sir? I'm taking it down.
Yeah, please. Right now.
Yes, sir. Done.
That's right. Okay. Good.
So 1 minute, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anybody 1 more minute? Okay. See, explanation for hydrogen spectrum by Bohr's theory. So how Bohr's theory explains this? Okay. Now, you see, it's also found later. Lyman, Balmer and all, they found out, no? Lyman series is found to contain ultraviolet radiations. UV radiations. Balmer series is found to contain visible radiations. Okay, visible. And remaining 3 series are found to contain only IR radiations. Okay, infrared radiation. Even bracket also has IR radiations. So that means what? There are 5 series of lines. From all the 5 series, how many different electromagnetic radiations are possible? 3. Lyman series has UV, Balmer has visible, remaining 3, Pascal bracket fund has IR radiations only. That too, when I say IR radiation, see, you know this R mu gamma x, right? Is the electromagnetic spectrum. Gamma c. Radio waves, microwaves, infrared. Okay, from here to here, infrared. Let's say. Now, the lines which are in the beginning of the infrared region, they are called near IR radiations. Near IR radiations. Okay, the radiations which are at the middle part of it are called mid IR radiations. Mid IR. The radiations which are at the end of the IR are called far IR radiations. Far IR radiations. Okay, fine. You just know about it. So 5 series of lines, and all the 5 series of lines have totally 3 different electromagnetic radiations. So Lyman, UV, Balmer, visible, and remaining 3 IR. Of all the 5, only 1 series of lines can be seen by naked eye, that is Balmer series, because it contains visible radiation. Explanation for hydrogen spectrum by Bohr's theory. How exactly Bohr's theory explains the hydrogen? Now, Bohr theory says simply like this. In the hydrogen atom, electron is present in first energy level. That is the lowest energy level. That is the lowest energy level of hydrogen or any atom. First energy level means low. As we move away from first to second to third to fourth to like that, energy of the energy levels increases, and thus electrons also. So electron in hydrogen atom is there in the first energy level, that is lowest energy, and it is called ground state. Ground state means for any atom, ground state electronic configuration means electrons being present in energy levels with lowest energy. If electrons are present in an atom with lowest energy, that electronic configuration is called ground state. Okay, so now we'll take it further. So in hydrogen atom, electron is there in first energy level, which is called ground state. Now what did we do to get hydrogen spectrum? We took hydrogen gas here and supplied high potential. That means we have supplied energy to that. So then when energy is supplied, the theory says, when energy is supplied, H2 molecule breaks into H atoms and hydrogen atoms absorb energy. What do you mean by hydrogen atoms absorb energy? Electron, which is there in ground state, will absorb energy. That's the meaning. Hydrogen atom absorb energy means what? Electron in the hydrogen atom absorbs energy. Okay. So absorb energy where electron in ground state gets promoted or excited, gets excited to different higher energy levels. Okay, so when you supply energy, electron present in first energy level, that is ground state, absorb that energy, gets promoted different higher energy levels. In higher energy levels, energy is more. Whenever energy increases, stability of any substance decreases. Okay, so electron has gone to higher energy level. So where in this higher energy level, stability is less or decreases, I can say. Stability decreases. So in order to attain more stability, electron in higher energy level will have to jump back. It has gone to higher energy level by absorbing energy. Now it has to come back to attain stability. Now while coming back, as we have learned already, always electron whenever jumps from higher energy level to lower energy level, difference in energy will be emitted as light photon that forms spectrum. Okay, so what I can say is,
So excuse me, sir, what is that when the E ground state gets?
electron in ground state gets excited to different higher energy level.
Okay, sir.
Stability of electron decreases. Okay, therefore electron gets de-excited. Electron gets de-excited. That means, what do you mean by de-excited? Jumps to lower energy level.
Lower energy level.
Lower energy levels. This can happen at a stretch. Let's say electron has gone to 10th energy level. From 10th energy level directly comes to first energy level. That is at a stretch. Or it can happen in steps, 10 to 8, 8 to 5, 5 to 2, 2 to 1, like that. It's all about probability, that's all. Okay. So electron gets de-excited in steps. It may happen in steps or at a stretch. Or at a stretch. So depending on to which lower energy level electron gets de-excited and lands up, different amount of energy is emitted in the form of radiations, and this gives rise to spectrum. Okay, so what do you mean by that? See that. I'll write an atom. This I have to write up to 7 shells at least. It is slightly difficult for me to draw 7 shells. Let me try. This is the nucleus. First energy level. Second. Third. Fourth. Five. Six. Kindly adjust with the diagram. Okay. Yes. Eight energy. This is the sad hydrogen atom. Not to worry. So we'll take. This is first energy. N is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 energy. Now, before excitation, when hydrogen gas was taken in discharge tube, where was the electron? Sorry, where was the electron? Electron was there in the first energy. That is called what? Ground state. Okay. Now we have supplied energy. By absorbing that energy, electron go to different higher energy level. That's what he said. Which energy level it goes? It depends on how much energy it has absorbed. If it has absorbed little energy, then it goes to third energy level. Little more energy, fifth energy. Very much more, 20th, 30th energy. Okay, let's say this electron has absorbed so much energy, it has gone to 8th energy. This is called excited state. Any state other than ground state is called excited state. In the excited state, electron energy is more. As a result, it cannot stay there. Stability is less. So it has to come back to lower energy levels by emitting the energy. If electron from any higher energy level, if it is directly de-excited to first energy level like this, then it gives rise to an ultraviolet radiation. Any energy level. So let me draw from one more energy level. 7th. Or let me draw from here. From any higher energy level that ends up with n is equal to 1. This gives an ultraviolet radiation, UV. And UV radiation means which series? Lyman series. Oh, now we have got idea. How do we get Lyman series? When electron transition takes place from any higher energy level to first energy level. Similar. When electron transition takes place from any higher energy level to second energy level, n is equal to 2, then you can see here, second. Any transition from higher energy level to second energy level gives rise to a visible ray. Visible radiation. Which visible radiation means which series is that? Balmer series. Similarly, any transition of electron from higher energy level to third energy level. Third energy level. This gives rise to a IR radiation, near IR, and it constitutes what? Pascan. Similarly, any transition of electron from higher energy level to fourth energy level. Constitute IR, middle IR, and it gives rise to bracket series. And similarly, any transition of electron from higher energy level to fifth energy level. This is fifth. This gives rise to a far IR radiation and constitute what series? Fund series. This is the explanation offered by Bohr-Stier. Okay. So hydrogen gas, when given energy, electron gets promoted to different higher energy levels. It will be less stable there. It will come back to lower energy level by emitting the energy. Okay, by emitting the energy. Now people have to tell me, answer my questions. Electron jumps from higher energy level to second energy level. What radiation?
Visible radiation.
Visual radiation, sir.
What series?
Balmer
Balmer
series.
series.
Electron jumps from high energy level to fifth energy level. Which radiation?
Bracket radiation.
Fifth energy level.
IR,
Far IR.
infrared radiation.
Far IR, we say. And what series is that?
Fund series.
Fund series.
Electron jumps from higher energy level to the third energy level. What radiation?
Infrared.
radiation.
Infrared.
Which series is that?
Pascal.
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 Series. And then, if bracket series has to be obtained, electron transition has to end at which energy?
Four.
Now, electron jumps from high energy level to first energy level. Which series?
Lyman series.
Lyman series.
Ultraviolet radiation. Now, electron transition goes from 3 to 1. Which series? 3 to 1.
Lyman series.
Ultraviolet.
5 to 3. 5 to 3.
Fund to Pascal, sir.
5 to, no, 1 will not come.
Infrared.
Where exactly it stops? 5 to
Lyman.
Sir, I said it's fund to Pascal, I said.
No. Fund will not come only. Electron, when the electron stops at fifth, it is fund. It is started from fifth and ends at third, means Pascal.
Pascal. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Electron transition from 8 to 5.
Fund, sir.
Fund. Now, if high energy radiation has to be obtained, high energy radiation or spectral line has to be found out or obtained from hydrogen spectrum, electron transition should take place between what and what? Let's say I want high energy radiation in hydrogen spectrum. Electron transition should take place from where to where?
From 8 to first energy level.
Why do you say 8 to first?
More energy is liberated.
You mean ultraviolet radiation is more energetic?
No, sir.
Then which
Yes, sir.
Huh? Which radiation is more energetic?
So please move up for a second, sir.
Why
I'll,
don't you be there and answer?
no, sir, that radiations you had written in series, no, sir. If we
You
look at it.
you want.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. UV rays only, sir.
See how witty she is. Huh? Very nice. That's the correct way of guessing the answer. Okay, let me write this, R mu x gammas. From radio waves to cosmic waves, frequency increases. Means energy increases. Frequency is nothing but energy. Now, as per that, in hydrogen spectrum, we don't have all the radiations. We have from here to here, right? Infrared, visible, ultraviolet. We have these three radiations. From infrared to ultraviolet, when you move, what happens to energy? Increases. So, IR, visible, ultraviolet, which is more energetic radiation? Ultraviolet. Ultraviolet comes from which series? Lyman series. And Lyman series will be obtained from electron transition from higher energy level, any higher energy, to first energy. So, if you have been asked, what is the electron transition to get maximum energy radiation? It should be higher energy level to first energy level. Is that okay? So, this is about the concept. Now, which is the visible spectrum of hydrogen? Visible part of hydrogen spectrum?
8 to 2.
That is Balmer series, right? Balmer.
Yes.
See, this Balmer series has visible lines, right? So has visible spectral lines that can be seen by naked eye. Among all the visible lines that you get by various transition of electrons to second energy level, there are 4 bright lines. There are 4 bright lines found among Balmer series lines. Okay, there are 4 bright lines found or prominent lines found. Those 4 lines are designated as H alpha, H beta, H gamma, and H, this is delta. H alpha, beta, gamma, delta. These are the 4 bright or prominent lines appear in Balmer series. Okay, and you know, Balmer series electron transition has to end at second energy level. If electron transition takes place from third energy level to second energy level, it gives alpha, H alpha. 4 to 2 H beta, 5 to 2 H gamma, 6 to 2 H delta. This is the radiation silhouette. So there are 4 bright lines in hydrogen spectrum. All the 4 bright lines are successively obtained by the electron transition from 3 to 2, 4 to 2, 5 to 2, 6 to 2. Okay, so that's one. Now we'll take it further. There is one equation called Rydberg equation. What is Rydberg equation? Let's see. Rydberg's equation. What is Rydberg equation? This equation, if it comes from 7 to 2, then it gives a visible radiation but not bright. The bright light would be possible only from these 4 transitions. That gives a line, visible line, but not bright. That's what. Because you know, only frequency or energy increases. Brightness is all about the intensity. Okay, it is nowhere related to energy levels, right? So Rydberg equation. What is this Rydberg equation? Why is it for? It is the equation which can be used to calculate the wavelength lambda, wavelength of spectral lines in hydrogen and hydrogen-like spectrum. What is hydrogen-like? I'll tell you. That means hydrogen contains 1 electron, no? Like that, any other atoms or species which contain 1 electron can be called as hydrogen-like. For example, helium. Helium atom has 2 electrons. If you remove 1 electron, it becomes He plus. He plus is therefore is hydrogen-like species. It will have the same structure, same spectrum like hydrogen. That's it. And the equation, Rydberg equation is, it basically gives nu bar, wave number. Wave number, what is wave number? 1 by lambda or nu bar, nothing but nu bar is equal to RH into 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. This is the Rydberg equation. Now what are the terms? Nu bar is wave number. I have written already. Let me not write it. Okay. What are the terms? RH is called Rydberg constant. Rydberg constant. And its value is 1.09678 into 10 raised to 7 per meter in a segment. You have to remember that one. And what are these N1 and N2 values? N1 is lower energy level. At which electron transition ends. Okay, lower energy level at which electron transition ends. N2 is higher energy level. At which electron transition begins. Electron transition begins. That's the thing. Okay. You can directly calculate 1 by lambda or nu bar. If you want wavelength, then the value will be reciprocal of that. Lambda is equal to 1 by nu bar. Now, the N1 is lower energy level.
Sir, that is E transition.
Ends, begins. N2 is begins. N1 is ends. Okay. Now I'll give you a table. Series N1, N2, electromagnetic region of the spectral line. We'll take one by one. Lyman, Balmer, Fasken, Brackett, Fund. So these are the 5 series, right? Let us decide N1, N2 values. What should be N1 value for Lyman series? Lower energy level where electron transition ends, right? What should be N1?
1.
1. What should be N2?
8.
No, anything other than 1 is higher energy level. Electron transition can take place from 2 to 1, Lyman series, 4 to 1, 10 to 1, 20 to 1, anyway. So apart from 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. It may go to any energy level to first energy level. That's what we see. What series it will give? Ultraviolet UV. Now, what is the N1 value for Balmer?
2.
What should be N2?
3, 4.
Other than 2, that's all. 3, 2, 4, 5, etc. It gives a visible light. Pascal?
Sir, other than 2 means it should be higher than 2 alva, sir.
Of course. Emission alva. Emission agbekandre ಮೇಲಿಂದ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಬರಬೇಕು.
It should be higher, yes, sir. It should be higher.
Higher energy. It should be higher. N2 is always greater than N1. 4, 5, 6, 7. Fund. N1 is 5, 6, 7, 8. And all the 3 are IR. This is near IR. Mid layer. Far. Right. So just know about N1, N2 values for different series. Okay, in problems they'll ask you. For 4 prominent lines of Balmer series, There are 4 prominent lines of Balmer series, right? For that is Balmer lines N1, N2, H alpha, H beta, H gamma, H delta. What are these values? Let's see. N1 value for Balmer lines is always 2. I have given you that before. And 2, H for H alpha, N2 will be 3, 4, 5. These are the 4 bright lines of Balmer series. They may ask you, calculate wavelength of H alpha line. Calculate wavelength of H alpha line. They will ask. For H alpha line, N1 is equal to 2, N2 is equal to 3. You can substitute and simplify. Get 1 by lambda first and then take reciprocal to get lambda line. There will be problems on Rydberg equation.
Sir, H alpha will have the highest wavelength, no sir?
Whenever energy difference decreases, wavelength obviously increases. So 2 to 3, energy difference is lower when compared to 4 to 2, 5 to 2, 6 to 2, like that. So when energy difference increases, frequency increases, wavelength decreases. What you said is right. Correct? So higher wavelength. And H gamma will have among the 4 bright lines a relatively higher frequency, lower wavelength. If it is done, we'll proceed. N1, N2, hydrogen spectrum, explanation for it.
Sir, 1 second.
Okay, I'm done. If it is done, we'll conclude for the day. We'll meet for the next class in the next week. Okay?
Done, sir.
Yes. So we'll meet for the next class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.